Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Fusion Talks episode. I'm especially excited for today's conversation because we are diving into a perspective that's often behind the scenes, but absolutely vital for the sustainability movement. Joining me is Simon Banks, founder of SRS, that stands for Sustainable Recruitment Solutions, and the region's go-to expert when it comes to sustainability and ESG recruitment. Simon, great to have you here. How's everything been lately?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for the invite and happy to be here.
It's our pleasure, Simon. So Simon's journey is a fascinating one. He started as an environmental scientist before stepping into recruitment in 2005. Since then, he's been helping organizations across sectors find the right people to lead the sustainability efforts, from FMCGs to finance to energy and agriculture. Since relocating to the UAE in 2010, he's become one of the most trusted voices on talent strategy in sustainability space, speaking at leading forums like the World Green Economy Summit and Dubai Green Economy Partnership. Today, we'll unpack what the sustainability job market really looks like, how leadership are shifting, and why talent is the ultimate driver of transformation. Ready for it?
Indeed.
Let's go. Simon, you began as an environmental scientist. What sparked the move into recruitment and what kept you in it for almost 20 years?
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years, it really hits home from that side. But I mean, look, I guess as a child, I was always interested in the outdoors and into the natural environments, and that was therefore the logical area to start studying. And I'm probably somebody who sees himself as an empiricist, at heart, somebody who likes the objective data, the science, the facts. But at the same time, once I realized that there was an opportunity to start being more involved in the human side, it's actually much more rewarding, or at least for myself, from that side, to be working with people who are also still having an impact upon the natural environment and addressing topics like climate change and broader sustainability issues. That side. So it's balancing together the slightly more objective and slightly more subjective components.
So you're channeling your passion to the environment through selecting the right people to create the impact.
Well, I mean, it's certainly true to say that I would have no interest in doing recruitment in the traditional finance, oil and gas, or many other sectors. From that side, I like working with companies that I work with because I can see that they're making a positive change in the world, and that's really nice to be part of.
Of course, driving the force for good agenda, and you cater to it by having the right talents in place. So, what's one insight from your science background that still shapes how you assess talent today?
Look, I guess it probably would be that slightly more empirical starting point, that I like to see different candidates evidencing what they have done rather than people just making what I would often call a subjective assertion as to I believe that I'm good at this, I believe that I'm good at that. Okay, let's take that to one side. Let's see actually what have you done in practice.
Exactly.
From that side. Can we evidence those skills from that side? And that's not to say that the softer skill set is invaluable, but we need a baseline as a starting point. And that's probably where that scientific mentality starts from, I would suggest.
And this culminates to the reality where we always say we want to move from commitments, ambition to action. And for action to happen, we need as well the functional skills to drive this agenda and journey.
And the credibility.
And credibility.
And it's much easier to ensure credibility and to avoid greenwash accusations by rooting yourself in objective, internationally recognized data, methodologies, process from that side, rather than if a theoretical company comes up with a brand new way of doing a carbon inventory and nobody else understands that, or nobody else even has visibility upon how they're doing it, you're not really going to get the credibility that goes with it. So, it translates both from an individual to a corporate scale relatively quickly.
So this is the scientific hat again. It's the data, the insights, the facts, the evidence, which as well enriches the portfolio of someone. And on top, it will be sharpened with the as well behavioral skills and leadership mindset. Was there a moment when you realized sustainability had shifted from niche to non-negotiable in the hiring world? Where is the status?
Um, we probably need to take one step back and say, what is sustainability and what is a sustainability job? Because these definitions have many different answers.
True.
And so it means that there's been different sort of kick points for different applications of sustainability. Like if I talk about in the UAE, the first jobs that I remember routinely helping organizations hire, which were called a sustainability manager or sustainability experts, were probably around the green building side. When the Estidama Green Building Code was first launched, it must be 2010, 2011, from memory from that side. And so that was probably the first iteration from that side.
Yes.
You then see, at other points when the COP happened in Paris in 2015 or 2016.
Yes.
15, thank
Yes.
you. There was then a broader uptake across the corporate world as to, okay, we're not just going to leave this to government. Actually, we're going to take a leading role and we're going to start talking about a broader range of sustainability from that side. And that then started to create more jobs in that sense as well. And then you have other aspects where across worlds like renewable energy, there's not a clear trigger point, but it's a case that in the economies of doing large-scale renewable energy has become far, far more competitive year upon year. And once an initial sort of small to medium-sized plant has been built and has been proven as a point of concept, and then the bankers and the investors start to become more confident as well, then they start bankrolling the next phase. And it's incredible actually here in Dubai that you think roughly 10 years ago, the first phase of the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum solar park was, from memory, 13 megawatts as the first size. Now almost the default in the region has become 1 gigawatt for an IPP.
True.
Which is, a monumental change, but it's come from proof of concept as well.
This is all evolving fast, and thanks to the vision and the leadership who have the appetite in the country to compete on this landscape and to bring in innovation and then marry talent with the innovation to prosper further.
It's the certainty and the reliability kind of the leadership that the private sector knows what is going to be happening. There is a clear roadmap exactly
vision.
From that side. And therefore, companies feel confident to start investing. And the renewables is a prime example from that side. But you can see it in other sectors at the same time as well. But it gives people the confidence that actually this is not just a one project. Actually, it's one project this year, another project next year, 2 projects the year after, and after and after. It's worth building and localizing skill sets actually in the UAE rather than it just being done on an ad hoc manner because it's a one-off project.
Capitalizing on this, since we're discussing vision and roadmap and the evolution, so the Bay of the past 5 to 10 years, how did you witness as well the demand, the thirst for sustainability roles in the region?
So again, I'm going to be a little bit pernickety and go back to definitions of sustainability roles, because the broader economy has grown significantly in the last 5 to 10 years in the UAE and across the broader GCC as well. And so naturally there will be an increase in roles as the economy grows. In addition to that, there has been all of these other global trends which have also led to more companies starting to internalize sustainability locally. And that can be manifested in many different ways. Look, the clearest comment I can probably give is when I first came to the UAE in 2010, a lot of the initial hiring we were doing was for government. It was for policymakers, it was for regulators. So it was for the likes of the Urban Planning Council who were creating the Estidama Green Building Code back whenever it was from that side. whilst now the vast majority of the work that we do is with the private sector, who are actually just busy either complying with, or more to the point, saying, okay, what can we do to advance sustainability on our own terms rather than waiting for it to be mandated upon us.
I believe as well, when we're witnessing the themes under sustainability, be it circular economy, be it regen ag, be it knowing the soil, climate resilient crops, the awakening that came as well after COVID on so many principles, it created this momentum that we need experts, for the vertical farms to see what can be seeded in the desert in terms of harvest, then the renewables and the whole portfolio of renewables that are proliferating. So,
well, and it gave people an opportunity to take a step back and to almost touch base with some of their ethics and their starting point as to, what can I do, not just to earn a good salary at the end of each month, but actually to make a positive impact.
Yes, the values has risen.
So whether that be in agriculture, whether that be in renewables, whether it be just in almost normal business, but doing it in a incrementally more ethical manner.
Including procurement. Any job, it can contribute to this agenda.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So who's hiring and who's lagging behind? Like many companies as well are redefining purpose and that they want to do less harm and more good. And this is something which is cascaded from the top across. But really, who are the ones at the forefront? Is it multinationals? Is it SMEs? Is it big local regional companies? And as well, we see many companies moving from pure CSR to really more driving hardcore sustainability. But who are the winners and who is still lagging?
I mean, honestly, it's relatively rare that I hear the phrase CSR used these days, which is probably a positive because it had become to mean charity. It becomes
exactly. I second you.
It become a slightly whiffy, unquantitative. Okay, let's do a nice donation to this, rather than it being a core part of the business strategy
or creating shared value.
So look, there are all manners of different sectors where we can see sustainability being implemented. I would say, as a general rule, the EU and Europe is having a stronger regulatory market and regulatory push to make companies comply. And therefore, the companies in the Middle East that have that international exposure, either through ownership, either through investment, either through they've got a certain customer base, client base within there, they're all starting to have to actively address all manner of different sustainability. There are companies that I know almost on a weekly basis that are exporting product from here to Europe and are being sent questionnaires about CBAM, so cross-border adjustment mechanism, so very much kind of on a carbon basis. There are others which are being hit with TCFD, and in the past it would have been a little bit more CSRD, and so that international expectation and slightly more kind of mature approach to sustainability. The region is maturing at a really fast pace when it comes to sustainability.
Great news.
But we're not the most mature in the world. Therefore, there are still lessons that can be learned from elsewhere, from that side. And you can look at the banking finance sector. If you look at the size of sustainable finance within the UAE, it is still lagging compared to certain other global financial capitals from that side. But it's the direction of travel that probably gives me most positivity. In terms of where are the jobs, I think is the nub of kind of your key question. And they can be in all manner of different roles and organizations. And I would actively encourage that, sustainability is not a department, it's not just a CSO, it's not just one or two people.
It is holistic end-to-end.
It is broadly integrated into an organization, and therefore not every job needs to be labeled sustainability. You can have your procurement guy, you can have a finance analyst, you can have whoever.
Packaging team,
legal. Anybody. Well, exactly. I mean, there are lawyers that I know who, they are conventional lawyers, but they're really busy just structuring deals around renewable energy plants and clean hydrogen plants these days. I would argue that is a green job, from that side, or certainly a role that is having a positive impact. And it's just a case of repurposing somebody in terms of their impact rather than them needing to go back to school and start all over again, because you can't expect a whole workforce to recalibrate. You can tweak, and there will always be certain individuals that want to have a career shift, but to achieve a genuinely more sustainable economy, it needs to be a repurposing of the impact that people are having, rather than expecting them all to reskill completely.
Repurpose coupled with lifelong learning, because it is such a wide topic which is evolving always, and I think the regulation evolution, the science, it's powering it with a lot of new data, the AI integration. So all of this, we need to be up to speed in order to be able to deliver the scale of action and make the difference faster.
Absolutely. I mean, and a clear example is, the UAE has brand new climate reduction legislation coming into effect pretty much now. I don't know when this will go out, but one aspect is rooting back to having people who can do the deep dive and understand the carbon accounting, the GHG emissions inventories, actually, help to unpick actually what that data does mean and how actually we can use that as a tool to make progress. Data is a byproduct. It's not the end result from that side. It needs to be used as a tool to make progress.
Interpreted to mitigate or proactively to future-proof business and the country and the resilience.
To inform strategy, fundamentally.
Yes, decision-making. What types of roles are becoming essential across industries, like that didn't consider ESG before? Maybe it's a bit related to what was mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, and fundamentally, we can talk about materiality in a broad sense as to what is material as a concern, and therefore as a skill set that a bank or a finance institution needs to hire. It's going to be drastically different to an FMCG
and
or
to
an engineering firm.
Hospitality.
Exactly. So there's probably not a simplistic answer for you on that, apart from to say, it starts with the mindset of the actual leadership and of the board to say, this is what we want to do, and actually, how are we going to achieve that in a way that is going to be impactful for our organization?
What really matters to us. So really be conscious as well about our operational impact, externalities, who are our stakeholders, where are the risks, the opportunities, and then maybe we can funnel who we really need and where to do what.
Agreed, completely. There's not much more I can add to that. Apart from, look, one of the quote that I always have kind of going back to in the back of my mind, and I don't think it was originally said by him, but it was Isaac Newton who said, we only see so far by standing on the shoulders of giants. And we can only make progress once we understand what is the baseline of what other businesses are doing, what our customers expect, what skill sets exist within the organization, and then see actually what more can we do.
Yeah.
It's not a case of necessarily reinventing the wheel. It's just a case of taking one extra step forward and then another step and then another
where
step.
we are and where we want to be.
Indeed.
Simply, yeah. Has the checkbox approach to sustainability hiring changed, or are we still seeing that?
Broadly, we don't see it, which is a positive from that side. Look, there will be certain examples. I don't know, the easy ones to think of are probably around, say, the construction sector, which is a significant, employer within the UAE, where if they are developing certain projects, they need to be LEED compliant, they need to be Estidama compliant, and therefore they simply need to have staff who can help take them through that process, or they're not going to be either awarded that project, they're not going to be eligible for that tender, etc. So there are certain, very base thresholds, but it is very, very rare that I'll be in discussions with clients and say, oh, we have to have somebody with this or that qualification as an entry point. It's more cases to, okay, what has that person done in totality? What is the value that they can bring to us? And therefore, let's look at that rather than it being a solid barrier.
So, moving as well from the checkbox of simply compliance to the whole added value that someone can deploy based on the cumulative experience, and where as well the association of those skills and the mindset of those people can be in correlation as well with the strategy ambition of the client. Here maybe you can do the bridge and you can
and fundamentally, I mean,
find
it
the right
depends
profile,
upon the different organizations as to kind of what their pressure points are sometimes. But you have to bear in mind that a lot of people and organizations are made up of people from that side. Will start with a relatively risk-adverse mentality. If they can hire somebody who have either come from a comparable background to themselves or a background that is common within that sector, they'll take more confidence from doing that rather than hiring somebody who talks a great game and theoretically has the skill base, but is going to be making a bigger change, to move from the FMCG world and go, oh, I'm going to be a CSO in a sovereign hedge fund from that side. It's quite a different world in that sense, and so the pressure point is different, and most companies will end up feeling more comfortable. And look, one of the roles of the recruiter is one, to give certain clients what they want, but also just to probe and say, well, actually, can you do it better? Could you achieve more impact by doing it in a slightly different way? And can this person actually help you address that as well?
It is a choice, I think, how wild the card will be played. So do we need exactly, a mirrored background, functional skills, experience, or we need completely new blood who have what it takes, but we want to be disruptive and unconventional, and we have the time and resources to test. It might work, it might not, for both. So,
well, and look, it's always a case as to talking about the alignment between the organization's kind of risk appetite and what their level of ambition is to do something new, and to make sure that aligns with the actual individual candidate as well. Because there are unfortunately no shortage of instances I've seen where people have joined organizations as a sustainability director or head of. They've had this real zest and zeal to make a great impact. They think that the organization matches that. After 12 months, they start to feel uninspired, that actually their level of ambition is not being met by the organization. Or fundamentally, they just weren't aligned from the outset. It's like people hear sometimes what they want to hear and they're going to put their belief into, I can help this organization see the value in doing it my way, in that sense. And look, you can convince organizations to change, but you can't convince every single organization to change every single time.
Either the organization is truly on board behind this ambition and commitment or not. So sometimes either the fitting, it's not about the profile and the skills, but it's again, we create the position, it's senior enough, it is empowered, but at the same time, the risk averse or culture, or if it will remain a tag on, add on, not really embedded in business strategy due to various VUCA or headwinds, you might not have the budget to do, or not really, it's as of the same importance like the bottom line or other choices. So there are variabilities.
And I mean, fundamentally, we talk about the fact that there is an increase in sustainability engagement and therefore jobs year on year, but it's not a straight line. It's a roller coaster that goes up and down. Even in the last couple of months, we've seen broader business sentiment oscillate, shall we say, depending upon what a certain president may have tweeted overnight.
Of course.
From outside.
Backing off the agenda,
and these things have
change.
Impact.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. So moving to some regional readiness and cultural nuance. What are the unique challenges of recruiting talent in Middle East compared to Europe or the US? We all know that so far, yes, there is and acceleration behind the momentum, but we are not yet incubated in an ecosystem that it's licensed to operate.
Correct.
And this will impact, of course, the whole equation.
Well, I mean, look,
What is your reading?
My starting point would probably be that it is evolving. We are in a maturing process.
True.
And therefore, it's not a case that every organization has a fixed, consistent idea as to what they want to achieve, and the market which they're working in is fixed and consistent as well. And therefore, it just means that different organizations will have a slightly different risk appetite. There are many different organizations that come to the UAE. Some are homegrown UAE companies and entities. Some will come from Asia. Some will come from North America. Some will come from Europe.
It's a melting pot for all.
Exactly. And therefore, it would be wildly optimistic to think that all of those organizations from all the different corners of the world are going to have the same interests, ambitions, growth expectations, funding
Yes.
from that side. So, variance is baked in. That's an absolute normal starting point.
It's heterogeneous by default.
Indeed. And so look, it just means that different organizations will start to address things in different ways. And also, what are they doing in the region versus for some organizations, what are they doing at a global scale? But maybe they're doing it from their headquarters in Tokyo, in Los Angeles, or from wherever from that side. One of the really positive aspects is that there are more companies with a global footprint origined out of the UAE now than there would have been 10, 20 years ago. Look at DP World, look at various companies from that side who have genuinely taken a regional business and made it global. And that then means that they start to have global roles actually based out of the UAE rather than those jobs being done from London or from Paris or wherever.
Also, the geographical centricity, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Plus, so it's think global, act local, or sometimes you have the global agenda and the ambition, but the local context to drive various activities and commitments will remain relevant. So sometimes you need the global as well talent or local talent who needs to create or co-create, because we all know we need each other, a lot of partnership and collaboration.
And to contextualize into what is actually relevant and realistic here.
To the consumer here, to the community, to the context, the climate, infrastructure, regulation.
I'll give you an example that a couple of hours ago, I had a call from somebody who works in the waste management sector in the UK. And he was trying to understand transferability of what he does to out here. And every square inch of the UK land is valuable. And therefore, nobody wants a landfill in their backyard. Nobody wants an incinerator nearby. There's a lot of pressure from that point. That doesn't exist in the same way within the GCC, where the pressure not to send waste to landfill doesn't exist in the same way. And therefore, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons why the cost of putting waste into landfill is very different here, much cheaper, compared to what it would be in other more regulated, more mature markets from that side. And so it's a case as to contextualizing as to what's relevant in the local market. Okay, and then using the science and using the engineering skills and using whatever is relevant to that organization. But local context is king.
Of course. Local context, local insights, what really strikes a chord, how it will be perceived, how is the awareness, the incentive, the lifestyle, everything comes into this equation. Is there still a talent gap, or it is a mindset gap?
Talent gap or a mindset gap? I'm not sure that there's ever been a pure talent gap. Look, there is a need for organizations to find the most appropriate way for them to actually to look at sustainability for them as an organization. Don't, again, go back to the earlier point, don't expect one or two people to be the answer to this is the sustainability answer.
It's not a magic wand.
So if you say, actually, look, we want to make our procurement policies more sustainable, look, yes, you may need somebody with a track record of how that's done in the past, but the lion's share of the work is going to be done by your incumbent procurement function. And it's just working with them, teaching. Most people, I find at least, are inherently interested in doing something that is greener, cleaner, more ethically responsible. Everybody wants to do that. A lot of people at times think, how can I do that? I'm just a procurement guy, or I'm just a whatever in that sense. And so if you reskill them and actually give them the knowledge and the capability to do so, that's easy. That's straightforward. And that's the easiest way for a lot of organizations to start to turn ideas into reality, because you're not having to kick out your whole existing procurement department and hire a brand new procurement department. So I guess I'm unusual in the sense that I'm a recruiter saying, don't necessarily worry about recruiting, just reskill some of the existing stuff.
Learning, development, awareness, capacity building, tools, frameworks, AI, copy with pride, something adapted to what works for you.
And look, the region is not short of consultants that can help engage with organizations and guide them as to, look, this is what you could do.
The shift and the transition.
So whether organizations need 1 or 2 people internally, or whether they need some short-term assistance from an external partner, the options are there, but you don't necessarily need to kick the baby out with the bathwater. If that phrase is common.
It is well received. I like it. Are we seeing more cross-functional moves, like marketing leaders shifting to sustainability, or it's still considered a specialized lane?
Yes, that does happen, and marketing is a clear example of one. But the hesitancy that organizations will have at times is, if they don't want to be accused of greenwash, then it's sometimes easier to have a clear distinction between what is their traditional, conventional marketing and PR capabilities compared to their sustainability side. Rather than, once they start kind of blurring them together, then it can sometimes do more damage than benefits, because then everything gets questioned as to their sustainability work. And look, the simplistic starting point I would say is, if you want to understand the sustainability approach or strategy of an organization, don't spend too much time reading their sustainability report. Spend more time reading their company reports, their financials, because then you can see whether it is baked in to the main strategy of an organization, or it's an add-on.
An annex.
Indeed.
It's an annex. I truly believe, actually, that as generalists, you can, and why not, to explore cross-functional moves, because in the end, it is a hybrid approach to strategy, business, advocacy, communication, internal comms, external centricity. And it takes some skills and deep curiosity to make it happen. And you need to be able to mobilize your colleagues and the top management, and to deeply care. If you don't care, it's not about the move. So it's not necessarily a certain job with really high guardrails. Unless you want someone who's very skilled and technical with certain know-how and renewable energy and something in engineering. Okay, this is very clear and obvious. But in general, if you want really this mobilization, orchestration, there are other credentials that could work with the right support.
And fundamentally, it's not a binary topic. It's not a case of you're a sustainability professional or you're not. People coming from all manner of backgrounds can have a positive impact. You don't need to have a job title that says sustainability expert.
Very true.
From my side.
Very true.
Just look at what you are doing, and let's go back to that procurement example or the finance example, and say, actually, what can we do to make sure that we're looking at as many different sustainability topics? Are we talking about, child labour in our supply chains?
This is common sense,
Are we looking at engagement of renewable energy in our supply chains? Are we looking, I don't know, from an engineering management and buildings perspective, are we just reducing our emissions? In which case, look, if we have a more efficient building stock, it's probably going to help us save some money from that side as well.
Even the waste of the building,
indeed.
The emissions,
so,
everything.
There is sometimes just a rush that people feel, I need to be called sustainability this or sustainability that. You don't need to be.
You don't need a green star on your shoulders.
Fundamentally, get rid of stars. Sorry.
Titles and shares.
Do it for the genuine value that you are creating, rather than for the plaudits that you're hoping to get on the back of it. And that completely goes into the job title.
Again, if you really care, I go back to this to make a purposeful, positive difference and intentional difference by choice, then the horizon is all yours. Just drive it and get more people on board, because no one can do it alone.
Indeed. And look, there are so many different sectors. You can talk about the agriculture. One of the most interesting mandates I've done in the last couple of years was for a mining company who were doing mining of cobalt and copper in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, where you have potentially, at least, every possible concern. You've got child labour, you've got environmental destruction,
safety.
You've got governance, corruption, you've got safety, you've got
money laundering,
lack of equity. Exactly.
Everything.
Every single concern will be flagged up there as a material factor. But actually seeing that organizations are saying, look, we see value in doing this. And one of the trigger points for it was they were basically having concerns as to whether they could get their cobalt into kind of the lithium-ion batteries that will end up in your Tesla or in your iPhone from that side, if they didn't have documented systems in place and reporting to prove what they are doing. So it wasn't actually necessarily what they were doing before was bad. Some of it was really good, but it was much more informal, and they needed to structure it to give confidence to their investors,
and the credibility,
to
and
then
the
make
trust.
sure they had the access to markets from that side. But it's one of the examples I always think of when I can see companies making these broad sustainability ambitions as to we're going to do this, actually seeing it trickle down and actually go down into real people on the ground in a relatively underdeveloped market.
To really understand where the problem is, where is the pain, what harm is happening, and how we can shift gears to make it more responsible, ethical. We owe dignity to the people across the value chain, so all of this matters.
Indeed.
Yep. What separates a good ESG leader from a great one?
Wow. Let's start off with humility and ethics, because if we take the starting point that almost all knowledge in the world is at your fingertips these days, and can be generated for you by AI as well, your ethical compass needs to be the starting point. And a lot of organizations, some organizations will have sustainability sitting as part of their risk portfolio, and say, actually, if we don't do this, there are these material risks to us. But there is still an element as to it being the North Star that organizations want to be perceived as and to point towards as well. And so you need, fundamentally, your executives, and this is not just a sustainability director, it's your CEO, it's your COO, it's the whole suite, need to be really comfortable talking around what their ethics are, what their humility is, actually how can we do this in a considered, careful manner. And look, also accept that no person and therefore no organization is perfect. Own the mistakes that you make. Don't just hide them away.
Dare to share where you are, what's happening, be it, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Indeed.
And to work around it and share the progress and be vocal about the actions, track them, audit them, have assurance.
So look, at an executive, at a senior leadership level, it is those human characteristics that are the key starting point, and also kind of seeing how people respond when things go wrong. Do your ethics start to wobble a little bit at that point, or do you stick true at that point? Once you come down to kind of, let's say, a mid-management level, then yes, some of the technical skills will start to become as relevant. And the track record, can you make sure that we can design this wind farm that the blades aren't going to fall off halfway through? We just see in Spain and Portugal actually last week or week before,
the blackout,
the blackout from that side. And that's a lack of redundancy as part of the system, or seemingly. The investigations are still ongoing. So there are always going to be certain technical, kind of engineering, science-led skill sets which can add real value from that side to solve problems. But once you get to the executive level, absolutely, it's the human-centered approach.
Human-centered, responsibility, the integrity in the governance, and the trust in the values.
Everybody's seen the quotes that people don't leave companies, they leave because
people
of...
and leaders.
Exactly. So if you want to have stability in your organization, you need to lead. Genuinely
lead. That starts from the top. It is inspiring or it's rotten. Are organizations really ready for change makers, or are they looking for safe choices?
Again, we don't live in a binary world. It's not a case that organizations sit comfortably into one topic or the other. Maybe the same company may oscillate from quarter to quarter between those self-descriptions at times. So yes, for certain functions, we got your classic examples that nobody, if you're going on a flight, you want to go with a captain who's really well trained, knows exactly what he's doing, rather than somebody who just has great people skills and thinks he knows how to fly a plane.
Flight simulator.
I'm not getting on that plane from that side. So of course there are roles where technical proficiency, expertise is really, really useful from that side. But it's a balance from that side.
It's a balance, it's situation leadership, it is how you have to behave in order to lead at best, depending on the circumstances, situation, the decisions that you have to take.
And look, fundamentally, most people will be judged as much by how they behave in their worst
in a crisis
as they will be under the best situation possible. Everyone knows, from a sustainability viewpoint, if an organization makes 5 or 6 really positive sustainability related actions, announcements, achievements, but then it comes out that actually they've got, a large amount of child labor, or they've got a large amount of environmental destruction, or whatever negative aspect, one negative will outweigh 10 good.
We all know.
9 times out of 10 from that side.
Mm.
Which is unfortunately, part of the dynamic of a world that we live in, where everyone has access to that information, and that information can be weaponized in an unfortunate way at times. But that's why, going back to the leadership side, that humility to own your mistakes individually and as an organization, is the best way to be transparent.
And true and real. Accountability.
Indeed.
Yeah. What's a placement or project that truly made you proud, Simon? Not for the title, but for the impact.
Made me proud. I would have to probably go back to placements that happened 10, 15 years ago, because then I have the benefit of hindsight to look back and to see the impact, both for that individual, and sometimes you can see an individual that has joined a particular entity and their career has developed on that. And that's really heartwarming. That's the human-centered aspect rather than the scientific mindset. From that side, you can see people doing well and benefiting and moving their lives forward. But also you can see it for organizations as well. So there are people that I've hired, director generals for kind of research centers, and you can see actually some of the work that center has been able to undertake has been really significant, and that has helped lift people out of poverty. It's helped address significant environment, climate-related challenges from that side. Equally, there's hiring that I've done in the past for the likes of the IFC, International Finance Corporation, who are working in less developed markets. And therefore, it's probably always easier to be emotively linked to the organizations that have a broader purpose than profit. When you see organizations who are actually going and making direct impact to people's lives and to the broader society and to the world, that's always going to be much more heartwarming.
This was the word I was echoing inside, actually.
Well, it is, and rather than if I do a great job for, I don't know, a bank, and they go, oh, we've increased our profit turnover by 12% this year thanks to this new function. I'll be honest, it doesn't warm the cockles of my heart in the same way that you can say, well, actually, we've increased empowerment for women in local communities. We've done this.
It leaves you with a different sense of pride.
Yeah.
Simply.
Well, one is much more transactional than the other.
Exactly. If you were advising a CEO today on where to invest in people, what would you say?
Start with the people that you have in your own organization. Hopefully, look after them and cherish them, train and develop them. Make sure that they are as aware of the sustainability topics that are relevant to their individual roles and function as possible. And equally, look, a lot of the time, the C-suite does need a safe space for them to ask the stupid question, because most CEOs and CFOs and other members of the C-suites have not grown up 20, 30 years ago talking about sustainability, talking about climate change, talking about risk adaptation from a side, talking about all of these manner of different topics, and therefore the expectation of the public eye that company should know what to do. That company is made up of the people, and therefore the C-suite need to be comfortable that they can just ask the stupid questions sometimes. There are 1,000,001 acronyms out there. What does TCFD mean? What does CSRD mean? What does CBAM? Any of the different acronyms. Should we be compliant with GRI? Should we be looking towards other systems? They need to feel comfortable that at the top they understand enough. They don't have to understand everything, but enough to at least have a polite conversation over dinner around what their company's approach and policy is upon this topic, that topic, and that topic. And then they can actually start cascading that into the organization. And look, yes, at times companies will need to hire in expertise to help them with that. I'm very happy to do so. But a lot of the time they need to start off with the people that they have within the organization already.
And that is two-way. The top, they need to get more comfortable with the topic, not only before a certain press release or a dinner after a gala to talk about few headlines.
And there's no shortage of research these days suggesting that Gen Z is going to be putting much more expectation upon their employers as to this is what we're going to do, or we're going to leave. We're going to go and work for another organization that better aligns with our values.
You have Gen Z and you have your future consumers.
Indeed.
Who will not vote with their pockets to buy something, your product or service, if you don't stand up to.
And I will make the point, actually, it's not just Gen Z. Gen Z kind of hit the headlines sometimes. I talk to people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s all the time, who want to transition into a more sustainable job. Therefore, of course, they're interested in both what they buy as a consumer, but also what the organization they're working for is doing.
The impact of the organization and the impact of their choices. There's more awareness, more consciousness.
Indeed.
For it, but maybe not sometimes readiness to pay an extra buck to get that, but at least it's in the internal code or the ethical code when you filter the options. And
it's a spectrum, it's not binary, it's not this or that. People sit on different places in continuum. Not everybody has to be a Greta Thunberg to say, if you're not that, you're not a sustainability advocate. You can be somewhere close. You just start off with what you can do, and then you learn a bit more, you do a bit more, and keep going.
And you keep going, exactly. So we want to do A quick fire approach.
Okay, I'll try to keep it quick.
Furnish me with the hook. So, one ESG trend that's overhyped.
Got to go for carbon offsetting. Carbon offsetting is the one that has probably gathered the most general headlines and proven to be unreliable or not meeting the standards of those headlines from the side. And that has dented public confidence in a far more significant way than any other trend that I can think of from the side. So carbon offsetting.
Yeah, excellent choice. A skill every sustainability candidate should have this year.
One question. Because if we're saying that sustainability is a facet of a wide spectrum of different jobs, there's not one simple topic that everybody from a procurement through to an environmental engineer to, even though there are marine ecologists and scientists who I know that purely specialize in coral research and just breeding of different types of corals from that side. They've got no relevance to knowing about GRI or to about CBAM from this side, but they all have really relevant roles in making the world a cleaner, greener, more sustainable place. So, sorry, there's not one specific skill. Apart from you can put a softer skill like empathy if you want.
Empathy, yes, and human rights in business, because human rights, animal rights,
animal rights,
appreciating life on
rights.
Earth. A private sector or public sector, who'll win the talent war?
There's not a war. Again, I'm going to disagree with the premise of the question, I'm afraid. But, a war suggests that one side wins and one side loses. To have a more sustainable world, we need both sides to make progress.
We need to thrive together.
Indeed. There's absolutely no benefits to having one survive and one not. So, they need to work together. And they are, from that side. Look, at times, yes, I would be an advocate. I'd like to see stronger climate legislation. I'd like to see bigger penalties for pollution incidents. I'd like to see
carbon emissions.
I'd like to see, in some senses, higher electricity tariffs in the UAE. Because whilst the UAE has, this is a quick answer. I'll keep talking.
I love it. It rushes in your veins. It's so obvious.
But whilst fundamentally the UAE has a pretty efficient energy and electricity generation system, it has an incredibly efficient transmission and distribution system, and can apply this to water as well as
smart
electricity.
cities, smart
but
infrastructure.
Once you get to the consumers, everybody has been to shops, to restaurants where the air conditioning is freezing cold, just sitting there.
Even in boardrooms.
But the doors are wide open to 45 degrees outside and humidity from that side. There is a massive amount of inefficiency at times.
Yeah. It is about really understanding the metrics, being more intelligent, how to moderate, to create efficiencies while doing the right thing.
Yeah. Oh, and look, fundamentally, if you talk to a lot of engineers and architects, they will, at least privately, admit that there is an over-specification of a lot of the buildings and new buildings in the UAE. So you can go to certain buildings here in Dubai, which are LEED, gold, platinum rated, which are brand new, and everybody's sitting there freezing cold and having to put jumpers on because it's been over-designed as a system. That's not great.
How to leverage the smart systems.
Yeah. And also to make sure that there are no vested interests that go against efficiency and sustainability. You need to have a certain safety margin in most systems, whether it be on a building level or broader systems. But let's make sure that we're not fastening it up too much, that we're becoming very inefficient at the same time as well.
Very true. Last time I was as well a panelist in Terra at Expo, and the audience was fine, like it wasn't totally packed, and we were freezing. And one of the speakers was as well an architect, and she was showcasing, role model examples from different countries about smart buildings. And she told everyone, we are in this beautiful place, which as well, it's all about sustainability, and we are freezing. So smart systems, when they're leveraged properly, you don't waste all of this excess in the chillers and in the generation of energy. The ambient temperature should be by default set based on as well the footfall. So a lot of waste sometimes happens even if we are doing things on renewable, on solar. Just because we have it, we should not take it for granted. How we can walk the talk more in everything and be conscious about it, it will help us step up.
Indeed.
And give a signal and a lesson to everyone.
Well, and also it's cases to both organizations need to make sure that they're not making too many assumptions as to what customers and what people want as well. Actually, do we need I don't know, a straw with your drink in a restaurant? Do we need the air conditioning to be set at that level?
Is it required
or not?
Yeah.
Like there are ways that you can actually start to change systems just by asking actually basic questions as to what do we actually want. Now that said, I will make a shout out that events like Expo, and to be fair, even the Football World Cup over in Qatar in the past, Expo coming up in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of the big projects being funded by PIF, Red Sea Global, NEOM to a degree, they are raising the capacity of sustainability across the region because they are encouraging more and more buildings to be designed to be efficient, to be sustainable, and then for their activities and the operations to be carried out in that way as well. And that then starts to embed that both within the organizations, but within the value chains, within what products are available in the local market. And then that starts to have a cascade through to even projects which are not part of that. So, they are events rather than something that will continue for forever.
But it will magnetize the right
exactly. There are lots of clear examples where we can say, well, actually, people have learnt more from that. They brought those skill sets into the region. And even if you're an engineer or an architect who's helped design one of the pavilions at Expo, they'll then take those lessons learned and say, well, look, we did some nature-based solution work up at Expo. Can we talk to this client and that client and that client about it? As well, and then it starts to naturally cascade. Okay, both companies are selling their services, but it starts to cascade into other projects, and that's a positive.
That's great. Do you have anything that you wish to add that I didn't ask you for our
how many hours have you got?
We're wrapping up, but would you like to leave our audience with something to stick in their mind?
And fundamentally, I would say sustainability is a mindset, whether it's called sustainability or not. And I will keep going back to that point, but you don't need to be called sustainability this or that. You can make a positive impact in your career and therefore in the world without that label being associated with it. And it's just a case of trying to be as conscious of decisions that you make, both personally and professionally, as possible, to then make an incremental change from that side. And look, the UAE benefits by we have a very stable, growing economy. There are a lot of opportunities to try new things here, and it's a case of making sure we do the things that are in the best interests of broader society, rather than just for us individually at the same time as well.
That's great. Thank you so much
No
for a wonderful session. I love the technical and the human side of you because it really helped to frame everything beautifully. And as you said, it's not binary. It is a spectrum. It's, I think, even a palette of colors. And the difference make it beautiful, but it's a journey where we need to keep going. So how we can inspire each other to start. We don't need the title or the authority or the rank. We need to be humane, driven by purpose, have the empathy, curiosity, deep care to keep going.
I think the important thing to say is we are still human.
We are.
We're not robots yet.
Yeah.
From
Not totally
AI
replaced.
maybe transitioning and progressing, but we're still human. We have the ability to make human choices.
Yes.
And we need to stick to that.
Of course. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank
Such
you,
a
Vismin.
wonderful discussion together.
My pleasure.
Ciao.